I trained 6 bosses, buried 3 of them in retirement parties. The 7th one looked me in the eye and called me a prick. My name's Jack Monroe. I'm 58 years old. Until this morning, I was the senior systems integration manager at Thornwell & Drake, a mid-sized tech consultancy firm in Scottsdale. 34 years. That's how long I'd been there. I started back when we still used dot matrix printers and took smoke breaks without shame. I saw the company through 3 rebrands, 2 acquisitions, and one hell of a ransomware attack in 2007 that nearly shut us down. I've onboarded every department head since Windows XP and wrote the operations manual that the so-called innovation team still uses today. People used to call me the map. Because if you were lost at Thornwell, you asked me. This morning, Carson, my former mentee, scheduled a leadership alignment huddle. That's what they're calling meetings now. Alignment, like we're all just data columns to be reformatted. I knew something was off the second I walked into the conference room and saw Devin already sitting at the table. He didn't belong. Too polished. Tight fade. Ironed shirt. Sleeves cuffed for show. Some kind of startup shark trying to swim in our pond. 25 maybe. Could have been my son. If I'd made different choices. Carson started the meeting with a big grin, the kind he used to have when I'd quiz him on system architecture and he thought he finally had the right answer. He clicked the little remote, and up popped a slide. Evolving forward, new energy, new vision. I felt my stomach tighten. He talked about agility, modernization, AI acceleration, synergy. Every buzzword that makes a seasoned engineer want to fake a heart attack. He said the company needed to reimagine the backbone. That's what I was now. Not a person. A backbone. And apparently, we were getting a new spine. That's when he said it. Jack will be transitioning out of his current role as we onboard our new director of applied intelligence strategy, Devin Marks. I didn't move. Devin nodded at me, flashed a smooth grin. Like this was some kind of coronation. Carson kept going, thanking me for my years of unwavering contribution, like he was delivering a eulogy. My chair felt smaller than it ever had. He said they'd be tapping into Jack's legacy wisdom as needed. Legacy wisdom. Like I was a rusty reference book they didn't want to throw out, but didn't want to read either. I turned to Carson, looked him in the eyes. He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. That's it? I asked, voice steady. He shrugged. Come on, Jack. This isn't 1998. We have to make room for innovation. Can't teach old dogs AI tricks. Then he chuckled and added, don't be a prick about it. And there it was. I didn't respond, just stood, straightened my jacket, and reached across the table to shake Devin's hand. His palm was soft, unsure. His grip said confidence. But his eyes said he didn't understand the room he'd just inherited. I gave him a nod and walked out without another word. In the lobby, I passed by the young associates clustered near the coffee bar, whispering and peeking over their screens. Someone said, "Damn," under their breath. Someone else laughed too loud, like this was a TV show and I'd just been voted off. I could hear the echo of it as the glass doors hissed shut behind me. But I didn't look back. They thought I walked out with nothing. What I really took was everything they didn't understand. The next morning, I was sitting at my kitchen counter in sweats, coffee in one hand, company laptop in the other. Devin probably thought I'd already turned it in. HR hadn't processed anything yet. No official termination, no box of personal items waiting in the lobby. I still had access, and I intended to use every second of it. Thornwell and Drake's infrastructure had been cobbled together over decades, like most mid-sized firms that grew faster than they planned for, what they called hybrid stack architecture. I called a Frankenstein of patchwork systems duct-taped together with hope and legacy code. I was the only one who knew where the bones were buried, how old SQL dependencies talked to the new AI models, how the compliance trackers piggybacked off an outdated ERP bridge no one had dared touch since 2014. I'd built the AI training model they were now branding as revolutionary. Devin was probably showing off dashboards I'd written during a Red Bull-fueled sprint in 2019. But the thing about systems is, they remember. They're architects, I hadn't built it with malice, but I had built it with complexity. Tight loops, fingerprint dependencies, nested conditionals that only someone with my brain could navigate without tripping alarms. I started the extraction quietly, downloaded the buried PDFs, the original training protocols, the encrypted logs from our first machine learning tests. Nothing proprietary in a legal sense, just my own notes, my own architecture designs, my own workflow diagrams, files with names like J. Monroe, Sysint, Orig, V2, that no intern would even know how to search for. Flashbacks hit in strange waves. E2K, sitting alone at midnight in the server room with a thermos of black coffee, watching clocks tick over with clenched fists. The 2009 breach, when someone on the third floor clicked a bad link, and I isolated the infected segment in under 90 seconds. The 2016 migration to cloud-hosted infrastructure, when the CTO wanted to outsource everything to Bangalore until I showed him how to save $250,000 with a hybrid sync plan. No one threw me a parade. They just kept handing me problems. By noon, the first text came in. Devin. Hey man. Weird Q, do you remember where the compliance matrix is housed for older clients? I think I'm in the wrong schema, LOL. 2 hours later. Also, can we hop on a call later? Carson wants to demo the AI sandbox and I can't get the tags to normalize. Appreciate you. I didn't reply. I wasn't being petty. I was being strategic. The battlefield was digital now, and I had home field advantage. Every system had a rhythm, a pulse. They'd handed the scalpel to a man who thought YouTube tutorials could teach him how to operate. And Carson had no clue what he'd ignited. He'd let ego talk louder than sense. That's the problem with promoting someone who thinks legacy knowledge is a liability. They forget that infrastructure doesn't care about job titles. It only cares whether the person pressing buttons knows what they're doing. By 5, the messages stopped. Devin had probably run out of ways to phrase desperation. At 5:43 p.m., my email pinged. It was from Carson. Subject: urgent. Message: Jack, I think we should talk. Can you call me tonight? This is important. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I clicked delete, closed the laptop, and poured myself 2 fingers of scotch. The good kind. The bottle I'd been saving for my retirement party. I figured I'd just opened it a little early. I wasn't gone. I was watching them fail in real time. The funny thing about legacy systems is they don't just remember you, they miss you when you're gone. The things I built over 3 decades weren't just code or logic flows. They were alive in a way most of the new generation never understood. Every workflow, every protocol, every silent failsafe, it all hummed with my fingerprints. So I left behind listening posts, not to sabotage, just to observe. Monitor scripts embedded in deprecated directories, hidden log forwarding, data shadowing, cloaked under innocuous task names like Daily Ops, Audit, V7. No one questioned them. No one even knew they existed. Devin sure didn't. 3 days after I walked out of Thornwell and Drake, Devin pushed a new AI model into the live client environment, called it Adaptive Sync 2. Buzzwords, polish, and zero redundancy testing. The system choked before lunchtime. One of our biggest logistics clients in Atlanta, Tier 1 Freight, called the support line in a panic. Their routing algorithm was returning null values. Trucks were idling in 5 states. The second client, Bearing Legal, lost access to their entire compliance history for 3 hours. Data mismatch, permission inversion. Their legal ops team threatened breach of contract if it happened again. I watched the logs flicker from my apartment. Terminal window split across 2 monitors. The alerts rolled in like clockwork authentication anomalies. Failed rollbacks. Recursive loops Devin didn't understand and couldn't trace. Watching him stumble through the dark was like watching a toddler try to disarm a bomb with YouTube tutorials. Carson's internal Slack messages started to get desperate. I still had access to the archive backups. He was blaming legacy cruft for the errors. That's what he called my systems now. Cruft. He was scrambling to put out fires without the extinguisher he'd just thrown in the trash. It brought back a memory I hadn't touched in years. 15 years ago, Carson was a junior analyst, fresh out of ASU, bright-eyed and underslept. I stayed late 3 nights a week helping him build his first systems dashboard. He was eager, teachable, asked smart questions. I taught him how to trace error propagation backwards, how to isolate false positives, how to build systems that told the truth even when people didn't. I taught him to think like a technician, not a title. Somewhere along the way, he forgot all that. Probably when they gave him his first office and stopped asking him to prove he knew what he was doing. Now he was back in the war room, staring at dashboards he couldn't read, asking Devin questions Devin couldn't answer. That afternoon, he called Anita, from HR, one of the few people I still trusted inside the building. She'd been with Thornwell almost as long as I had, ran the onboarding process for every exec since 2000. Carson's voice was strained, cracking even through the VoIP system. Can you reach out to Jack? Just see if he'll talk to me. There was a pause. You told him this wasn't 1998, Anita said. So I don't think he's interested in helping you out of the future you created. She hung up before he could reply. I closed the Slack logs and opened my email. There it was, subject line. Green light? From Malcolm Vega, VP at Aerodyne Analytics, the rival firm. We'd been talking quietly for months, long before Carson decided to get clever. They'd made me an offer 2 weeks ago. Lead systems architect, full autonomy, double salary. And one very interesting clause. I could bring in my own team. The message was short. Ready to drop the hammer? I sat back in my chair, watching the reflection of the screen flicker across my whiskey glass. Their system was bleeding, and I was holding the tourniquet. I smiled. I gave them 34 years. I took them apart in 4 days. The moment I hit send, the servers at Aerodyne Analytics lit up with the kind of data most CTOs only dream of. The files were clean, structured, annotated. Every integration point, every patch note, every dirty little workaround we'd used at Thornwell and Drake to keep the ship from capsizing over the last decade. I handed over the keys to a kingdom Carson never bothered to learn how to rule. Malcolm, Aerodyne's VP, didn't waste a second. By the next morning, they submitted a proposal to Tier 1 Freight, the same account Devin had nearly detonated with his failed deployment. Our documentation showed them exactly how to build a leaner, smarter system without the bloated AI layer Devin was pushing. They ran the numbers. Real savings, real uptime, real solutions. Within 48 hours, Tier 1, and pulled out of Thornwell's contract and signed with Aerodyne. That was a $20 million deal. Carson had been promising the board since Q2. Gone. Then bearing legal followed. They'd had enough of downtime excuses and audit mismatches. Aerodyne swooped in with a system that not only worked, but also included real-time compliance threading. My threading. The system I'd built but never got approval to deploy because Carson was too focused on flashy UI animations and blockchain buzzwords. By day 3, the board had called an emergency session. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't need to be. The logs told the story. Carson stammering through slides he didn't understand, Devin sweating bullets, trying to explain why his AI sandbox had triggered recursive data wipes on client-side archives. There's only so many times you can say, "We're investigating the root cause," before someone demands a head. On day 4, Thornwell's internal network received an automated system broadcast. Plain white text on a gray background. Nothing fancy. Knowledge lost is revenue burned. J. That was the last message my infrastructure would ever send them. I heard Carson was escorted out of the building 2 hours later. HR protocol, badge deactivated, device access terminated. The same corporate choreography I'd witnessed 100 times. Only this time, I was the one calling the tune. Devin wasn't fired, but he might have wished he was. No more presentations, no more Slack visibility. He went from AI ninja to ghost intern in less than a week. His LinkedIn went quiet. His ego followed. Malcolm called me that evening, said the board at Aerodyne had reviewed my transition materials and wanted to make the offer permanent. Executive role. Triple my previous salary. No bureaucracy. No middlemen. I'd have full control of all legacy tech integration. Build it right, from the inside. He told me, "We're not hiring a consultant, we're hiring the foundation." The next morning, I stopped by the Thornwell campus one last time. Not to say goodbye, just to see the aftermath. The glass lobby was still there, clean and bright. But it felt hollow. The energy was gone. The hum, the rhythm. I'd been part of the building's heartbeat, and without me, it ticked unevenly. Devin was standing out front, vaping something sweet that didn't match his face. He saw me. I saw the flicker of recognition, the stiffening of his shoulders. He turned away, stared at the parking lot like it held the answers he couldn't find in the code base. I didn't stop walking. I didn't need to. He wasn't the future. He was a placeholder, and the company that called me obsolete just got buried under the weight of everything they never bothered to learn. The funny thing about legacy when it leaves, everything built on it crumbles. Aerodyne made the offer official. But I didn't sign on as some permanent fixture. I told Malcolm I'd come aboard for 1 year. Contractor, not employee. No strings, no stock options, no politics, just results. I'd build the bones, train the team, and walk away clean. He nodded, said that's exactly what they needed. They'd seen what I could do when I was provoked. Now they wanted to see what I could build when I was free. First thing I did was bring in 3 names Carson had once labeled. Cost inefficiencies. Julia from compliance, Arjun from legacy systems, and Vic from IT security. All veterans. All sharp. All cut loose in the last 2 years by a leadership team that thought experience was overhead. I didn't even have to sell them on it. I just sent one message. New project. Full control. Carson's not invited. They showed up the next day, no questions asked. We moved fast. In 6 weeks, Aerodyne's internal framework was leaner, faster, and twice as resilient as anything Thornwell had ever touched. Malcolm started using phrases like bulletproof in executive meetings. Clients noticed. Word got around. The system didn't crash. It didn't stall. It didn't lie. And then, Carson tried to sue me. His lawyers claimed breach of contract, said I'd violated post-employment clauses and taken proprietary systems to a competitor. Bold move, considering the same man had called my work ancient scaffolding not 6 months earlier. But I'd expected it. I kept everything. Every email. Every annotated commit log. I'd even printed the NDA he'd signed when I turned over my final documentation, one that explicitly confirmed Thornwell had waived rights to all personal tools, notes, and frameworks not stored on company servers. Carson must have assumed I'd deleted the receipts. I didn't. Court was mercifully short. 10 minutes. Maybe less. The judge flipped through the file. My attorney handed her pages of dates, signatures, statements, code samples. She asked one question. "Mr. Monroe, did you create these systems independently?" "Yes, Your Honor. On my own time. With my own equipment. Not a line of it was ever under Thornwell's IP." She looked at Carson's side, who had suddenly gone pale. Then she gave a nod and dropped the gavel. Case dismissed. Outside the courthouse, Carson didn't look at me. He didn't say a word. Just stood there staring into a phone that wasn't ringing. Weeks passed. Aerodyne kept growing. Thornwell kept bleeding. Clients peeled off like paint on sun-baked concrete. Eventually, word came through that the company had been bought out by a smaller consulting firm from Denver. Fire sale terms. Half the staff laid off. Carson's name wasn't on the reorg chart. I took a detour one afternoon. Drove past the old Thornwell building. Just to see it with my own eyes. The sign was gone. Just a white rectangle where the logo used to be. Windows empty. Lobby dark. My old office, 2nd floor, corner unit with the oak desk I'd refinished myself. It had a new tenant. A dentist's practice. White letters on blue vinyl. Scottsdale Family Smiles. New patients welcome. I parked across the street and watched for a while. No one came in. No one came out. Just the soft flutter of a "now leasing" banner in the wind, snapping against a rusted post that hadn't been repainted since 2003. It wasn't 1998. But some lessons from that year still apply. Never mistake quiet for weakness. And never, ever bet against the guy who built the system.